Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and I'm here today in Tallinn, Estonia, by gracious invitation of the Estonian Defense Forces, specifically the Support Command Supply Battalion. They have a bunch of interesting modern historical Estonian firearms in their inventory, and they're letting me take a look at them and show them to you guys. So specifically today, what we have here is an M14 TP. That in Estonian stands for precision rifle, and this was the first, basically the first sniper rifle in Estonian military service. Now, to back up a little bit, the US supplied about 40,500 M14 rifles in standard M14 configuration to Estonia in 1998. Now, those were primarily used by the Estonian Defense League, not the Estonian Defense Forces. So, quick bit of background here. The Estonian armed forces are split into the Defense Forces and the Defense League. The Defense Forces are essentially the standard professional army. They have a large conscript contingent. Everybody does a year of mandatory service. There's a small professional cadre at the core. And then the Defense League is more along the lines of a part-time volunteer sort of reserve territorial force, kind of similar to the American National Guard. The M14s that the US provided mostly were used by the Defense League. The formal professional Estonian military had Galil rifles that were supplemented by a couple of different flavors of G3 rifles. But they did, the Defense Forces did use the M14 as the basis for their first sniper rifle, and it's this, the TP, which, as I think I said, stands for precision rifle, but also happens to stand in Estonian for total shit. So let's take a closer look at what they did to make a sniper M14. I really don't like to be too hard on most military-issued small arms, but this one is just really hard to find that much good to say about it. So when the M14s came over here to Estonia, they had the standard fiberglass stocks on them. For the TP guns, the snipers, those stocks were discarded or removed and replaced with locally manufactured wooden stocks. Now, this obviously is designed with sort of the sniper chassis in mind, but being made out of wood, it doesn't really actually provide the same level of precision. There is a rubber butt pad on the back end. There is a cheek riser that is adjustable. We've got a screw thread here that allows us to, lowering it down, so you can raise up the cheek riser to whatever level is comfortable. We have a thumbhole style of stock, right-handed only. Like, you can use this left-handed if you have to, but it is certainly designed specifically for a right-handed shooter. Not particularly surprising. The selector levers are disabled on these guns. That's how they came over from the US. And to Estonia's credit, they did not actually try to reactivate the full auto feature, at least on the TPs. At the front end, we have a bipod added on. So there was a rod that comes out the front of the stock. It is bolted on to the bipod right here. So to remove the bipod, you have to remove the lock nut and then remove the regular nut. Now, this big wire loop is actually there to allow you to either lock the bipod in place, like it is here, or if we pull this out and rotate it 90 degrees, we can then have the bipod swing freely. So the way this works is simply that the end of this wire drops into that hole and locks it in place. In fact, I'm not sure why you would really need to do this or want to do this, but you can also lock the bipod in place at the 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock positions. Bipod legs fold down, lock into place. It's just a simple spring-loaded friction type lock. And then if you unscrew that, you can actually extend the bipod feet a bit. So those are under spring tension as well. The highlight of a sniper rifle, of course, is usually going to be its optic. In this case, like, this is really the most unfortunate part of the M14 TP. So I'm going to take the scope mount off. This is a B-square scope mount. Now, all M14s came with an attachment point here on the side of the rifle for an optical sight. And this is the setup that was used by American snipers as well, the M21 and M25. You've got a threaded hole in the middle, and you've got these two grooves where on, like, the scope mounts made by Arms, made by Springfield, there were a pair of rails that would lock into these grooves to properly align the scope mount and keep it in position so that it didn't shift under recoil. The proper scope mounts also then remove the stripper clip guide here, and they have a third attachment, well, a second attachment point in this dovetail right there, and then they'll typically then have a tensioning set screw that you thread down onto the receiver so that you have 3 solid points of contact. The B square mounts purchased by the Estonians have none of that. So we have the screw here to go into that threaded hole, but there are no additional features on the inside of this scope mount. So with the exception of these 2 set screws, there's nothing that prevents this scope mount from shifting under recoil. What B square tried to do to prevent that is give you these 2 set screws, which are accessible from the top here and there, and those are screwed down into contact with the top of the receiver, the idea being to prevent that scope mount from tilting forward or back under recoil, but they did not work particularly well. To mount on top of that, they went with a brand called Hawke. This is a 2.5 to 10 power optic. It is made in China. It should be kind of a giveaway that you've made a not ideal military procurement decision when your sniper scope has a picture of a groundhog on it. I've seen this in a couple other places. This is this sort of thing, not this specific scope. I have no doubt that these were chosen because their specifications on paper look good and they were inexpensive. I mean, they must have been inexpensive, but in practical use, these were not successful scopes. They had massive problems retaining zero. There's, I mean, almost to the point that like the first shot you fired would mess up your zero, so you'd then have to re-zero, but in the process of re-zeroing, you lose your zero. So definitely not successfully employed in the field. All right, we'll do a quick bit of disassembly here. We'll just pull the action out of the stock. Now, this has 2 screws in the sides of the stock that lock the stock into the action itself. And these are not standard threaded screws, which is presumably a way to prevent anybody not authorized from disassembling the guns, which would certainly make sense if you had properly bedded M14s, because you don't want to mess with that. Like, even the US manual for sniper M14 specifically said, don't disassemble it. There we go. Got a washer in there as well. All right, with those 2 screws out, we can then remove the fire control group. That comes out. With the trigger guard removed, the action just lifts straight up out of the stock. This is a bit tight, but there we go. Inside the stock itself, we have these 2 metal retaining plates. These are the recoil lugs of the stock. So when this is in place, this surface, these 2 surfaces right here, butt up against these metal plates so that when the rifle fires, this absorbs the impact of recoil and isn't going to fracture or damage the inside of the wood stock. You can see from the texture and from this little area without paint that this is a laminated wood stock, but there isn't any special bedding or other preparation or treatment in the stock itself. So it's not really a precision stock, it's a precision shaped stock. And then lastly, we just have the hardware here at the front. They added a sling swivel to it, and then the mount for the bipod and the front lug to hold the action in place. The M14 TP was developed circa 2000, and not very many of them were made. Only dozens, probably somewhere between 50 and 100 or so. Again, the vast majority of the M14s were Defense League guns in standard condition. when first tested out by serious shooters in Estonia, that became very quickly clear that this was really not a particularly effective firearm. There were massive troubles with retaining zero, which should come as no surprise having seen the B-square mounts on these. The scopes are, like, I don't know this brand specifically, but I can already tell you this is basically a cheap junk Chinese scope that was used. Now, this would eventually evolve into something substantially better, still perhaps leaving a bit to be desired, but it became the M14 TP2, which we'll talk about in a separate video. Fortunately, that one was substantially improved over the original TP pattern. So I'd like to give a big thanks to the Estonian Defense Forces and the Supply Battalion in particular for giving me access to their cool guns to show to you guys. It's really awesome to see some truly unique pieces like this that you won't find really anywhere outside of Estonia. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.